5.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy, 5-Piece producer and engineer extraordinaire. Thanks for checking out this video, and if you haven't already, please hit the bell and the subscribe button below to stay tuned for more helpful tutorials and videos in the future. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about something that a lot of other engineers talk about in the industry, and that's mixing with mono compatibility in mind. Mono compatibility really refers to the stereo image of a track and what happens when you collapse it into just a mono or a middle signal, just one signal right down the center, as opposed to a left and a right signal, pan hard left and hard right, like I was saying. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in this lesson and show you how I check for mono compatibility in my mixes, and hopefully you can do the same in yours. Let's jump into Pro Tools and I'll break down what's going on. So let's talk about mono compatibility and checking your song to see if it translates into mono. The first thing I want to talk about is why would we do this? First of all, not everybody is listening to music through two speakers. Not everybody has a proper stereo image. In fact, a lot of people aren't even listening on proper listening setups in the first place. They're listening in their cars, they're listening on their phones, they're listening on headphones. And sometimes these things, they go wrong. They're not exactly perfect. So sometimes someone's listening to just one earbud instead of both of them. Sometimes a car radio is wired incorrectly and it goes out of phase. So how do you make sure that these things do not get into the way of your song? And how do you make sure that you deliver a very consistent experience for your end listener? Now, this is where referencing and checking things in mono comes into play. You want to check things in mono so you can have an idea of what your song is going to sound like if somebody is listening in a less than ideal situation. So it's very easy to check how your song is going to translate into mono using a very simple and of course free plugin, because I love the free stuff. So I'm going to show you this plugin. Let's go to it right now. It's called the Manipulator. This is from Boz Labs, I believe is the company name. And they really have a very simple interface. This is free once again. But what you can do is you can kind of flip these switches and see how your song is going to sound in a different, situation or in a particular set of circumstances. So for example, the one we're talking about right now is mono. So I got this song here. This is a song that I've already dropped, Something Out of Nothing. You might recognize it if you've been following me for a second. But let's just play a moment of this and flip it into mono and see how things translate. And I'll break it down and let you know what I'm hearing and what maybe we should do about it, if anything.
I just dropped it on the ski, made something out of none. Just broke out a quarter P, made something out of none. Take a look and come and see, made something out of none. Bitch, I'm straight up out these streets, made something out of none. I made something out of none, something out of nothing. I made something out of none, something out of none. Bitch, I'm straight up out these streets, made something out of none. Take a look and come and see, made something out of none. Hey.
So the song is actually a really great example of a song that translates pretty well into a mono situation. So you could see when this light is lit up, when I flipped it on, it was turning it onto the mono side, right? Making this mono. And mono, just in case you don't know, just means one signal down the middle, right? Whereas stereo is two signals, each panned hard left, hard right. So in this case, when I flip it into mono, you can hear that a lot of the elements are still preserved. Now, of course, it's not the same, and it's never going to be the same. So if anybody thinks that they're going to be able to mix something and then flip the mono button on and get it to just perfectly translate, that's probably not going to be a realistic scenario. Something is going to have to give, right? But what you really want to do is you want to flip this into mono and just listen and see, does a lot of the elements, and especially the main elements, do they translate into that mono situation? So for example, when I flip this into mono with this current example, some things definitely fold and sort of lose their luster for a second, right? And that would be things like the bass. The bass I used here was a synth bass. It's very stereo, right? And that specific sound kind of gets reduced and doesn't seem to be as forward or as loud and clear, right? But that's okay because there's a lot of other things that still come up. So you still hear your kick drum very clearly, still hear the snare clearly, still hear the artist's vocal clearly, and I still hear the 808 pretty clearly, right? And these are things that I really want to make sure translate and should translate in all circumstances. The things that you're going to usually lose when you switch something into mono or when you reference in mono is anything that's really in the stereo field. So in my example here, I'm losing that synth bass that I talked about, but you may also lose things like pads, keyboards, instrument sounds, and anything that's really panned hard left and hard right. Now, what you want to do in that situation is just try to figure out a way to maybe make those sounds more mono compatible. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, and it's obviously up to you if you choose to, but maybe what you can do is duplicate a signal and make it a mono version of that signal where you bring the panning inward and then find a balance between that mono version that you've just created and the stereo version that you already had there in the first place. It's all situational, and you're going to have to sort of evaluate and see what the best approach is to making your mix translate into mono. But nonetheless, it's important to reference things into mono so then you have an idea of what someone might experience when they listen to your song in a less than ideal environment. So there you have it. There's an idea of how I check my mixes for mono compatibility, just to understand what's going to happen if somebody is listening in a less than ideal listening environment, which is very common. If you got value out of this tutorial, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends, artist friends, engineer friends, anybody you think would benefit from this knowledge. And as always, keep posting on my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon. Peace out. Hey, what's going on? This is your boy 5-Piece, producer and engineer extraordinaire. Are you an artist, producer, engineer, or music professional that's looking for funding for your music career? Could you benefit from having funding for studio time, mixing and mastering, or even marketing costs? I think I have something for you. I've written a free ebook. It's 9 pages, super short and digestible, where I break down the 6 main places that artists and professionals like yourself can find funding for their musical projects. If this sounds like it's of value to you, please click the link below and you can download this for free today and benefit from this knowledge. I hope this helps. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Five.